Do not move past this moment too quickly, because what has been quietly hidden around you is beginning to reveal itself, and the next 3 days will not feel ordinary. Something is waiting at the edge of your life right now, not to harm you, not to frighten you, but to awaken you before a door opens that cannot be ignored. Heaven has been watching a conversation you were never invited into. Someone has found out something about you, something they were not supposed to understand this soon. And the strange part is, they did not discover it through your words. They discovered it through your silence. They noticed the way you stopped chasing. They noticed the way your energy pulled back. They noticed that something inside you changed, and now they are beginning to wonder if the person they underestimated was protected all along. Listen closely, because this is not the kind of message that arrives loudly. It comes like a whisper behind the heart. It comes like a sudden heaviness before sleep. It comes through repeated signs, unexpected memories, and the feeling that someone is thinking about you even when no one has spoken your name. For many days, you have been moving through life as if nothing was happening, but in the unseen realm, movement has already begun. There are steps being taken. There are thoughts being stirred. There are hearts being confronted. There are hidden motives being exposed. And in the next 3 days, something will shift. Not everything will be visible at first, but you will feel it. You will feel the atmosphere around you changing. You will feel old energy trying to return. You will feel a person, a situation, or a memory pressing against your spirit as if it wants access again. That is why heaven is saying, be careful. Not because danger is greater than your protection, but because your blessing is closer than your distraction. There is someone who has found out that you are not the same person they once knew how to affect. They expected you to remain wounded. They expected you to keep explaining. They expected you to keep proving your heart. But now they see something different. They see peace where there used to be panic. They see distance where there used to be devotion. They see strength where they once thought there was weakness. And this discovery has disturbed them more than they are willing to admit. They thought your silence meant defeat. But heaven knew your silence was preparation. They thought you had disappeared because you were broken. But heaven knew you were being hidden. They thought you were losing your place. But heaven was moving pieces around so your place could finally find you. My child, there is a reason your heart has felt strangely alert lately. There is a reason certain thoughts keep returning. There is a reason you sense that something is about to happen, but you cannot name it yet. Your soul has heard footsteps before your eyes have seen the arrival. The next 3 days are crucial because what was hidden in someone else's heart is beginning to rise to the surface. A truth they pushed down is pressing upward. A feeling they tried to dismiss is becoming too loud. A realization they avoided is standing before them like a mirror. And you must not run back to old fear when this happens. You must not confuse movement with maturity. You must not confuse attention with repentance. You must not confuse a sudden message with a changed heart. Because heaven is not only preparing a return. Heaven is testing the spirit behind it. There is a difference between someone coming back because they miss your presence and someone coming forward because they finally recognize your value. There is a difference between curiosity and conviction. There is a difference between wanting access to your energy and being ready to honor your soul. And in the coming days, you will need discernment, not suspicion. Discernment. Because what is coming may look familiar, but it will carry a different weight. You may receive a sign through a message, a dream, a sudden reminder, a name appearing unexpectedly, or a person acting differently without explanation. Something small may happen, but your spirit will know it is not small. You will pause. You will feel that strange inner stillness. And deep down, you will know, this is connected. Someone has found out that your heart was never the problem. Someone has found out that the love, loyalty, patience, and goodness you carried were rare. Someone has found out that losing access to you did not make them free, it made them aware. And now awareness is becoming pressure. They are beginning to remember moments they once dismissed. They are replaying words they did not value. They are seeing your absence not as emptiness, but as evidence that they mishandled something sacred. But listen carefully. This message is not calling you to wait by the door. It is calling you to stand in your worth when the door makes a sound. Because a knock may come, a sign may come, a shift may come, but you are not the same soul who once opened quickly because your heart was hungry for closure. You are being taught to pause, to breathe, to ask heaven, is this from you, or is this a test of what I have outgrown? That question will protect you, because in the next 3 days, the unseen will begin touching the seen. A secret thought may become an action. A hidden feeling may become a confession. A delayed truth may begin moving toward the surface. But before it fully arrives, heaven is asking you to guard your peace like it is a holy flame. Do not let anxiety interpret what only time can reveal. Do not let loneliness answer what discernment must examine. Do not let an old version of you make decisions for the person you have become. Because someone has found out something deeper than your beauty, deeper than your kindness, deeper than your patience. They have found out that you were sent into their life for a reason. And now the weight of that realization is beginning to move through them. They may not have the words yet. They may not understand why your name returns in quiet moments. They may not know why certain memories feel different now. But heaven knows. And soon, so will you. The first sign will not be loud. It will be subtle. A shift in energy. A sudden reaching out. A strange coincidence. A feeling that someone is standing at the edge of your life, unsure whether they are worthy to step closer. And when that happens, do not panic. Do not chase. Do not perform. Do not prove. Stay still long enough for heaven to show you what is real. Because the truth is, my child, what is coming is not only about them. It is about you finally seeing how powerful your absence became. You thought walking away made you invisible. But in heaven's hands, your absence became a mirror. And someone has been looking into it. They saw their own choices. They saw what pride cost them. They saw how your spirit kept loving even when your heart was tired. They saw that you were not difficult to love. You were difficult to replace. That is why these next 3 days matter. Because when realization touches a soul, it either creates humility or desperation. And you must know the difference. Humility will come with softness. Desperation will come with pressure. Humility will respect your peace. Desperation will try to rush your answer. Humility will carry truth. Desperation will carry confusion. So when the sign comes, watch the spirit behind it. Heaven is not asking you to close your heart. Heaven is asking you to keep it holy. Because you are entering a moment where your emotional discipline will decide what kind of door opens next. And there is one more thing you must know before this part ends. The discovery they made is not finished. They have found the beginning of the truth. But they have not yet found the part that will shake them the most. There is something they still do not understand about you, my child, and when heaven finally allows them to see it clearly, nothing inside them will remain untouched. For now, they only recognize your absence. Soon, they will recognize your significance. And those are not the same thing. Pause here for a moment and feel the weight of that. Because many people notice when someone leaves their life, but very few understand what that person was truly carrying while they were there. Very few understand the prayers that protected them, the peace that covered them, the unseen love that softened their storms, the silent strength that kept everything from falling apart. But the realization is coming. Not all at once. Not dramatically. It will arrive slowly, like light entering a locked room after years of darkness. And when it does, they will begin connecting moments they once ignored. They will remember conversations that seemed ordinary but suddenly feel sacred. They will remember the way your presence calmed chaos. They will remember how you saw through masks without humiliating people. They will remember how deeply you loved without demanding applause for it. And that memory will not leave them alone. My child, heaven has been patient because transformation cannot be forced. A soul must come to truth willingly. A heart must arrive at understanding on its own. That is why some distances were necessary. That is why some silences lasted longer than you wanted. That is why you felt abandoned during moments when you were actually being repositioned. You kept asking why things became quiet. But quietness was part of the unfolding. You thought heaven had forgotten you because certain doors stopped moving. You thought the delay meant denial. You thought the distance meant disconnection. But while you were grieving what ended, heaven was observing what would awaken inside the people who lost access to you. And now something is changing. The next 3 days are not important because of random chance. They are important because spiritual pressure is building. A hidden truth cannot stay buried forever. And someone is beginning to feel the emotional consequences of what they tried to ignore. Late at night, your memory has started appearing in their thoughts without warning. Certain songs suddenly feel connected to you. Certain places carry your energy. Certain words remind them of conversations they once dismissed too quickly. And they cannot explain why the feeling is becoming stronger instead of weaker. Because this is no longer just memory. This is recognition. Recognition arrives when the soul finally sees clearly what the ego once rejected. Listen carefully now, because there is another layer to this story that you have not yet understood. Someone around you has quietly been observing your transformation. Not loudly, not openly, but carefully. They noticed that you stopped begging for understanding. They noticed that you became calmer. They noticed that your energy no longer chases validation. And this unsettled them because people become uncomfortable when they realize they no longer control how you see yourself. You used to question your worth every time someone withdrew from you. Now you are learning that someone withdrawing does not reduce your value. And that lesson changed your spirit more than you realize. The version of you that once panicked over silence is fading. The version of you that once over-explained your heart is disappearing. The version of you that once mistook inconsistency for mystery is finally waking up. And heaven is proud of that growth. Do you know why? Because your future cannot be built by the wounded instincts of your past. Something greater is approaching your life, and your spirit needed to mature before you could recognize it correctly. That is why the next 3 days are spiritually sensitive. You are standing between an old emotional cycle and a new spiritual chapter. One wants to pull you backward through familiarity. The other wants to lead you forward through discernment. And in moments like this, many souls confuse intensity with destiny. Do not make that mistake. Some people return because they truly changed. Others return because they felt your energy leaving permanently. And only wisdom can tell the difference. That is why heaven keeps whispering to your spirit, slow down. Watch carefully. Listen beyond words. Because words can imitate transformation. But energy reveals truth. If someone comes toward you carrying urgency but no accountability, pay attention. If someone suddenly becomes emotional but avoids honesty, pay attention. If someone wants immediate closeness without addressing past wounds, pay attention. Not everyone who misses you has learned how to value you. And heaven refuses to let you repeat cycles that nearly broke your spirit before. My child, you have cried enough over confusion. You have stayed awake enough nights trying to decode mixed signals. You have questioned yourself enough times after giving genuine love to people who did not know how to carry it carefully. That season is ending. but endings often become chaotic right before they release you. That is why these next 3 days may feel emotionally intense. You may suddenly feel old memories returning. You may feel unusually sensitive. You may sense someone thinking about you heavily. You may experience vivid dreams, repeated signs, or moments where your intuition becomes louder than normal. Do not ignore those moments, but do not fear them either, because heaven is allowing hidden emotional currents to rise to the surface for a reason. Truth is trying to reveal itself, and once truth fully arrives, nothing fake can remain comfortable around you anymore. There is also someone else connected to this story, someone you have not fully noticed yet. This person has remained quieter, more observant, less obvious. While your attention remained focused on one emotional situation, another soul has quietly been paying attention to the way you carry yourself after pain. They noticed your resilience. They noticed your softness did not disappear even after disappointment. They noticed the way you still bring warmth into rooms even while healing silently. And unlike others, this person did not become interested because you were available. They became interested because they recognized depth. But timing matters. That is why heaven has not revealed everything at once. Because if all doors opened simultaneously, your emotions would choose familiarity instead of alignment. So heaven slowed things down. Not to punish you, to protect clarity. And now, as the next 3 days approach, emotional energies are colliding in ways you cannot yet fully see. One person is being confronted by regret. Another person is being guided by admiration. And you are standing in the middle, learning how to choose from self-worth instead of emotional hunger. That lesson changes destinies. My child, there is a reason you survived seasons that should have destroyed your confidence. There is a reason your heart still believes in love after disappointment. There is a reason heaven did not allow bitterness to fully take root inside you. Because your story was never meant to end in emotional confusion. You were meant to awaken. And awakening is uncomfortable before it becomes peaceful. The moment a soul begins recognizing its own value, every unhealthy attachment begins reacting differently. Some people pull away because they can no longer manipulate your insecurities. Some people return because they realize your energy was rare. Some people become angry because your growth exposes their stagnation. And some people finally become honest because they fear losing you forever. But regardless of how others respond, heaven keeps asking you one question. Will you abandon yourself again just because someone finally noticed your worth? That question matters more than you understand. Because attention is not always alignment. A confession is not always commitment. And emotion is not always transformation. The next 3 days will reveal more through behavior than through promises. Watch carefully who respects your peace. Watch carefully who brings calm instead of chaos. Watch carefully who speaks with honesty instead of performance. Because your spirit already knows the difference. You have simply spent too long doubting your intuition. But that doubt is breaking now. Heaven is restoring your inner knowing. That quiet feeling in your chest when something feels off. That sudden heaviness around certain people. That unexplainable peace around others. Those are not accidents. Your spirit has always been speaking. You were simply taught to ignore it in order to keep others comfortable. No more. The next chapter of your life requires emotional honesty. Not pretending. Not forcing. Not chasing. Honesty. And honesty may require you to admit that some people loved your availability more than your soul. It may require you to admit that some connection survived only because you kept carrying all the emotional weight alone. It may require you to admit that you kept hoping certain people would become emotionally mature enough to meet you where you stood. But heaven has seen your exhaustion. And heaven is no longer allowing your kindness to become a hiding place for other people's immaturity. That cycle is breaking. Can you feel it? Something inside you already knows change is near. That strange restlessness you feel. That sudden emotional alertness. That pull toward isolation and reflection. Your spirit is preparing. Because before revelation arrives externally, it first stirs internally. And there is still one truth you have not fully seen yet. The person who found out something about you. The person whose realization has been growing stronger. They are closer to reaching out than you think, but they are afraid. Not because you are cruel, not because you are unreachable. They are afraid because they now understand that losing you was not a small mistake. It was a turning point. And deep down, they fear you may have finally outgrown the version of them that once took your heart for granted. That fear has been following them quietly. Every time they try to ignore you, the feeling returns stronger. Every time they distract themselves, your memory rises again. Every time they convince themselves it is too late, something inside them whispers your name. But heaven has not yet allowed the final movement to happen, because one final revelation still has to unfold first. A truth connected to someone around them. A conversation hidden from you. A moment of realization that will completely change the way they see your role in their life. And when that moment happens, the silence between you will never feel the same again. The silence is already changing, my child, even if nothing has been spoken yet. There are conversations happening behind closed doors that your eyes have not seen, but your spirit has felt. There are moments unfolding in secret where your name has entered the room unexpectedly, and the people involved do not fully understand why the atmosphere changes every time it happens. One person grows quiet, another becomes defensive, another suddenly changes the subject. But beneath all of it, a truth is pressing upward. You mattered more than they admitted, and now heaven is allowing that realization to mature until it can no longer be hidden beneath pride. Do not ignore this feeling that has been following you lately. That sudden pause in your chest. That moment when your thoughts drift towards someone without warning. That strange sense that an unseen thread is tightening between you and a situation you believed was over. You are not imagining it. Something is moving. But before it reaches you physically, it must first break through emotional resistance inside the people connected to it. That is why the next 3 days feel spiritually heavy, not dangerous. Heavy, because emotional truth carries weight when it finally rises to the surface, especially for those who spent months pretending they felt nothing. My child, there is someone who tried very hard to convince themselves they had moved on from you. They distracted themselves. They buried themselves in noise. They surrounded themselves with temporary attention. They tried to keep life moving so they would not have to sit alone with the truth. But silence has a way of exposing what distraction cannot heal. And lately, silence has become louder for them. They have started comparing everyone to you without meaning to. They notice how shallow certain conversations feel. They notice how forced certain connections are. They notice how rare it was to feel emotionally safe around someone who genuinely cared. And this awareness is beginning to shake them deeply, because they once believed they would easily replace what heaven sent through you. Now they understand why peace has not followed them since your distance began. You were carrying something sacred into their life. Not perfection. Not fantasy. Presence. Real presence. The kind that listens carefully. The kind that notices emotional shifts before words are spoken. The kind that stays gentle even while hurting. The kind that loves with sincerity instead of performance. And people often fail to recognize holy things while they still have easy access to them. Only later do they understand. Only later do they feel the emptiness. Only later do they realize how protected they felt near someone whose heart was genuine. That realization is arriving now. But listen carefully, because heaven is warning you not to let nostalgia weaken your discernment. Missing someone does not automatically mean they are ready. Regret does not always equal growth. And emotional intensity is not proof of emotional maturity. That is why you must remain spiritually awake in the coming days. Because someone may approach you carrying emotion they themselves barely understand. One moment they feel confident. The next moment fear takes over. One moment they want to speak. The next moment shame silences them again. You may sense this emotional struggle before they ever contact you directly. Your intuition may suddenly become stronger. Dreams may become more vivid. Memories may surface with unusual clarity. You may feel emotionally connected to someone at random moments without explanation. These things are happening because emotional energy travels before physical action arrives. And heaven wants you prepared emotionally before movement begins externally. There is another truth you need to hear tonight. The pain you experienced was never meaningless. I know there were nights you cried quietly because you could not understand why someone who claimed to care could become distant so suddenly. I know there were moments you questioned your worth because affection became inconsistent. I know there were days you carried disappointment silently because you were tired of explaining how deeply you felt things. But heaven saw every hidden tear, every moment you pretended to be okay. Every time you gave kindness while secretly feeling emotionally exhausted. And none of it was wasted, because pain refined your discernment. You now notice red flags faster. You now recognize emotional inconsistency sooner. You now value peace more than temporary excitement. You now understand that real love should not leave you constantly anxious about where you stand. That wisdom came through heartbreak. And although the process wounded you, it also awakened you. You are no longer the version of yourself that begged for clarity from people who benefited from your confusion. That chapter is closing. Can you feel how different your spirit is becoming? You still love deeply, but now there is caution inside your softness. There is wisdom inside your empathy. There is strength beneath your kindness. And that transformation is exactly why certain people suddenly feel your absence more intensely now. Because your energy changed. You stopped overextending yourself to maintain connections that were draining your spirit. You stopped shrinking yourself to keep others comfortable. You stopped ignoring your intuition every time it tried to warn you. And once that happened, the spiritual balance shifted. The people who once felt secure taking your presence for granted suddenly felt distance. Suddenly they noticed silence. Suddenly they realized your warmth was not guaranteed forever. That realization awakened fear inside them. Not fear of punishment, fear of loss. And loss becomes powerful when the soul finally understands the value of what it mishandled. But there is still something hidden from you. A detail heaven has intentionally kept out of your sight until the correct moment. Someone connected to this situation recently learned information that changed the way they view you completely. This was not gossip, not manipulation, not strategy. It was truth. A truth that exposed how genuine your heart actually was. And when this truth surfaced, it disrupted a false narrative that had quietly existed around you. My child, there were people who misunderstood your silence. People who assumed your distance meant weakness. People who interpreted your calmness as emotional emptiness. But now the truth is surfacing piece by piece. They are beginning to realize that while others were playing games, you were protecting your peace. While others were seeking attention, you were healing quietly. While others were avoiding accountability, you were learning emotional discipline. And this realization has created tension behind the scenes. Because once people recognize your value clearly, they often become uncomfortable with the way they treated you before. Some react with guilt. Some react with longing. Some react with denial. And some suddenly become desperate to reconnect before it feels too late. That desperation is part of why heaven keeps warning you to stay grounded over these next 3 days. Because emotional energy will intensify. You may feel pulled backward emotionally for a moment. An old memory may hit unexpectedly. A familiar name may reappear. A message may arrive at an unusual time. A person who once disappeared may suddenly act as if no distance ever happened. And in that moment, you must remember everything heaven taught you during your healing season. Do not abandon your growth because someone finally noticed your absence. Do not trade your peace for temporary emotional validation. Do not confuse being remembered with being valued correctly. You deserve honesty, consistency, respect, gentleness. And the version of love heaven is preparing for you will not require you to constantly decode mixed signals. My child, something extraordinary is unfolding beneath the surface of your life right now. Even if your physical surroundings look unchanged. Even if your phone remains quiet. Even if the world around you appears normal. Spiritually, movement has already begun. The old emotional cycle is cracking. The hidden truths are surfacing. The masks are slipping. And the people who underestimated your importance are beginning to feel the consequences internally. One of them especially cannot escape it anymore. They tried. They truly tried. But your absence became louder than your presence once was. That is what they never expected. They thought distance would weaken the connection. Instead, distance exposed it. And now they are reaching a point where silence feels heavier than honesty. But before contact happens, before words are spoken, before explanations arrive, there is still one final emotional collision heaven must allow. A moment involving another person. A moment of comparison. A moment where someone connected to them unknowingly reveals the depth of what they lost through you. And when that moment happens, my child, everything inside them will change at once. Because they are about to realize something that cannot be ignored anymore. Something that will follow them into every quiet moment afterward. They are about to understand that what they felt with you was never ordinary. And once that realization fully enters their heart, the next move they make could alter both of your paths forever.